Make it 2:30 to an ordinary council meeting for Tuesday, the 25th of February. Do I have any apologies? No apologies. Do I have any leaves of absence? Got a fair few done last week, so I'm not speaking anymore. Well, I'll move. Oh, there's no need to. Don't need to move. No, we'll just move on. Declarations of conflict of interest. No. At all. There are no matters lying on the table. There are no special announcements. Public forum, Pierre.
Kia ora katoa. I will be brief today. I am just here to express Extinction Rebellion Queenstown Lake's full support for the newly unveiled plan to electrify our region. 6 years after we declared a climate and ecological emergency, this announcement is by far the most important step taken by this council to reduce our emissions in a meaningful way. Every fossil fuel powered machine replaced by an electric alternative tangibly reduces our emissions, while at the same time, electrification and renewable electricity generation makes us more resilient, improve the health of our communities, improves our economy, and reduces the cost of living burden for everyone in the district. But striving to fully electrify our energy system has the potential to benefit much more than just our district. To be the first community in the world to achieve a fully decarbonized energy system would make us global leaders. By leading by example and by demonstrating the many benefits of electrification here, we can help accelerate the decarbonization of the whole country and of the world. Today, we want to thank you for your work, and whether or not the regional deal goes through, this official support of the council for a fully electrified community will stay and will be remembered as a turning point. We are looking forward to our electric future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre.
Jonathan.
Good afternoon to you all. My name is Jonathan Holmes and I'm representing a new community group, Electrify Wanaka. We're part of a growing number of groups around New Zealand working with Rewiring Aotearoa to promote the environmental, social, health and economic benefits of electrification. We wholeheartedly support the proposed vision for a fully electrified region, especially the push for more solar PV and batteries and improved electric public transport in the district, along with important aspects to achieve success like the ratepayer backed by central government scheme, necessary regulatory changes and infrastructure investment to better enable, incentivize and deliver the benefits from greater localized decentralized power generation. Octopus Energy has just completed a pilot with Orion Networks in Canterbury utilising demand response management only, a technology referred to in the proposal. This pilot demonstrated that demand flexibility can reduce peak period electricity consumption for households by 50%. But what if this was taken further and incorporated both rooftop solar and batteries? This concept is called Zero Bills Homes, an initiative developed by Octopus Energy in the UK that builds new homes with developers with a guarantee of no bill for 10 years. Zero Bills Homes can be applied to existing homes, but has now been successfully trialled by Octopus Energy New Zealand for a new home built on North Island, combining innovative technologies, smart towers, rooftop solar and batteries to guarantee zero bills for 5 years. Electrify Wanaka is currently working with a local innovative building component fabrication company to stand up a Zero Bills home locally, the first on South Island. Tentative discussions indicate shovel-ready projects for 200 to 300 buildings could possibly adopt Zero Bill homes in Queenstown, and we hope this pilot project goes well. As a local community group that is working with Rewiring Aotearoa to raise awareness of an all-electric future and the potential of rooftop solar with batteries to provide lower cost energy within the region, we are holding workshops and sharing information to engage the community. We look forward to the rapid electrification of the region and to working with you and stakeholders to accelerate the proposal implementation. Thank you for this opportunity to speak at the public forum. And lastly, just want to say well done to the team behind the proposal and congratulate all of them on such an excellent initiative. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Hold your breath, Lisa. See you walk in there. It's 3 minutes. Floor's yours.
Thank you. Health Action Monica is a community-led advocacy group. Our purpose is to ensure that the people of the Upper Clutha have equitable access to health services. We're pleased to see health services included in the proposed regional deal for the Otago Central Lakes. Our region is seeing very high growth, and there's no doubt that we need many more publicly funded health services to meet growing demand. However, we also know the Upper Clutha is projected to see higher growth than Queenstown. It's effectively, Queenstown is landlocked. As such, we believe a regional hospital delivering publicly funded services must be built in a location that offers the most direct access for the most people in our region. A regional hospital in Queenstown could mean people living in the Upper Clutha would have to travel further and through more difficult terrain and traffic conditions, like I did today, to access services that they can currently access at Dunstan Hospital. Our concern with the proposed Otago Central Lakes Hospital in Queenstown is that a private investor is dictating what happens where a regional hospital is located for our people. Furthermore, what happens if down the track this private investor flips a regional hospital to sell it to an international investor? Have our councillors considered the implications of this? To ensure the best possible outcome for our region, we believe that other models for delivery of health services should be considered. Models using capital investment from the likes of ACC, ethical super funds or iwi would more likely see our regional hospital built with the most equitable location for our people. Our expectation is that an important decision about the healthcare of the people of our region requires a transparent and competitive process that sees all potential models explored. Further, meaningful community consultation about our healthcare must comply with the Code of Expectations required under the Paiora Healthy Futures Act 2022, which outlines how health entities must work with consumers, whānau, community, in the planning, design, delivery and evaluation of health services. So our question to the council is, have all potential opportunities for a location of our regional hospital been explored, or does the proposed Otago Central Lakes Hospital in Queenstown reflect the ambitions of a private investor over and above the needs of community? The location of our regional hospital should be decided as a result of strategic level planning, and that puts the community's needs at the centre of the decision making. This proposal locks our community into a regional hospital solution that is not the most equitable outcome for our people. We call on the councillors to give serious consideration to what is proposed here and ask ourselves and yourselves, can we do better than this?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Right, I move that the agenda be confirmed without additional alteration. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Barry. All those in favour? Aye. Motion carried. Item 1, page 4 of your papers, councillors. Regional deal proposal approval.
Procedural item, just ahead of that, could I move that we suspend standing orders to allow for appropriate questioning time and discussion?
I would second that.
Sorry, which standing order?
I don't have the one number in front of me, sorry, but it's the one that relates to the 5 minutes question time and the time limit on debate.
I'll come. Thanks, Jane.
Sorry.
Yes.
No, first of all, I need to back up. We know what that's
So given 20.
20.2.
Just suggestion that
No, it's all right. We've got a motion. We can work through it.
there's some duct tape.
You can't have debate once you move the motion.
Yeah.
We'd have the standing order number.
So I've got, sorry, hang on. Sorry, all the governance officers come on. Okay. And in future, we'd appreciate if you actually sorted it out. And
Yeah,
turned up.
apologies, I made that. Yeah. I did signal it.
There's 20.1 and 20.2 temporarily. And 20.3. Yeah, 20.2 is time limits on speakers.
Hang on,
20.3. But
hold-
if the councillors not.
Hold your horses because Jane's still trying to work through it. So no point putting pressure on Jane.
Yeah, standing order 20.2.
And 20.3 is questions.
Twenty point three is not particularly relevant because it's simply how questions are channeled. It's not necessarily what I've heard Benton ask.
Yeah, that's true. It says questions of staff though.
What is it? 20.2.
20.2.
20.2.
That's
Then
only, that's only,
standing orders 20.2. I have a mover.
no,
I
that,
have
hang
a
on, that's
seconder.
not what Quentin said.
Hang on. Councillor,
Yes. Can we
you're not the mover.
If
So let
I'll see if
let
it's
Quentin
ready.
speak for his own
It's
motion,
screenshot.
please.
Okay, just to
I'm
clarify
thinking-
that the wording of that is that it suspends. Apologies, I should have had it.
Standing order,
20.2.
yeah, to permit a question time longer than
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
No, 20.5 not about 5 minutes.
I've sent it through.
So it's 20.2 is the time limit on speakers. Is that all in draft?
No, it's question time.
Question.
More than once. It's 20.
Lose my patience, come on.
Just go 20.2.
20.2 is fine.
Okay, 20.2 discussion,
No, you
councillors.
don't have discussion on a point.
Oh,
Point
okay.
of order. There's no
Okay, all
discussion.
those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Motion failed. Moving on. Staff? Proceed. Any?
Hang on, we have time for a minute.
Right,
You kidding?
it is me. Kia ora koutou. Feels like this has been a long time in the making to get here, but I guess it hasn't been that long, but it feels like it has been. So, as you all know, this regional deal proposal is a partnership between us, CODC and ORC. So we've been working with officers from across those councils and have had discussions with CODC's councils at least about the proposal as it's moved through the various draft stages. Again, just wanted to highlight the fact that this is a starting point for discussions with government. So in what we're looking at today and what you're voting for today, it's about
agreeing to be part of a partnership with CODC and ORC in terms of working with the government on the potential for a regional deal, with this as the starting point for those discussions. So the detail of what the packages will actually be will be worked through through a negotiation if we were to be invited to the table for a regional deal. I just also wanted to again highlight that obviously this has a strong focus on economic growth, because that's the strategic framework for regional deals is grounded in economic growth, but it's also grounded in the existing strategic documents and strategic direction of in particular CODC and QLDC strategic documents Queenstown Lakes, that's through the spatial plan and the economic diversification plan and the destination management plan coming out of that. Also in the transport space, all of the existing work through the public transport business cases and transport business cases that have been done over the last few years. So what we've done through the regional deal is we've worked across those three councils and really kind of framed, seen this as a really awesome opportunity to bring all of those things together and to highlight them into a package for government that we can partner on with the government, with private sector, with iwi, in order to deliver on those things that aren't within the single control of any one council. So that's kind of the basis behind the deal. So we won't go through the packages or the proposal again.
Thank you for opening gambit. Questions, councillors?
I don't know.
I'll go.
Just a quick one, on the last page in the case for change, you state the Queenstown Lakes delivers highest number of houses per capita in New Zealand, it's 29, 2024. I was a bit confused on per capita, is that per person of population? If it was 29 houses per person, it would be 1.45 million. So I'm just seeking clarification on what that ratio was of the 29 versus the New Zealand average of 5.
Sorry, Stats New Zealand's 29 per 1,000.
It is
Oh, per 1,000. Yeah, sorry. Yes, I was like, no, per one, that's not right. It's
Yeah.
the number. Per capita, yes, per 1,000, sorry.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, I was like, uh-oh. No, it is per 1,000.
that's all.
Sorry, yeah.
Thank you.
I'll clarify that then.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just a clarification, we just heard public forum. My understanding, what we've got in here, Safe for Health, is things that are, we had to put things in there that have some basis already, such either started or talked about. And when we go into the detail, things that are aspirational obstacles in the future that aren't actually on the table, haven't planned for yet, would come later. Is that correct? We couldn't include that in here now because that hasn't got to a stage where it's more than just an aspirational thought. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the basis for the health package is that Whātau Water Health NZ has no investment in public health facilities in our districts in the next 10 years in their planning. So this package is based on opportunities that are present through the private sector that we could leverage to be able to get public health services here without significant capital outlay to Health NZ. And so on that basis, this is what's in here is on the basis of a piece of work that has been done in conjunction between QLDC and CODC by an independent person who has done that piece of work and worked across the private sector to identify those opportunities. So that's what this is based on. But if this became part of a regional deal and a negotiation and Health NZ was given priority and mandate to pick this up, I'm sure they would be able to put that they might put a wider focus in here. One of the things we've asked for is to enable this to be part of the regional planning, for them to take it into the planning for health services across the region. It's certainly not intended to be a standalone. It's kind of a piece of work that is some great ideas that can be picked up and looked at as part of the wider system.
Thank you.
Just to you, Mr. Chair, just as a reminder for all councillors, we weren't able to ask for anything that required new money or new funding. This is about redirection, reprioritisation, recommitment and regulatory change. So we've had to think somewhat laterally.
Further questions? Quentin?
Yeah, thank you. I'll start with the health one because that was just raised. So it refers to a health services asset strategic report that I don't believe we've had access to. Can you just speak to that as to how do we understand the strategic or the priority investments when we haven't been subject to that report?
I think the key thing to note that these aren't investments per se. These are things that are already happening that the private sector is investing in. The strategic report talks about how they can be leveraged for public. That report will be available at the point that that report is, I think, sitting with the minister at the moment, and so we want to. The author of the report wants the minister to be aware of it.
It's in a box. It's in a box here that says our proposed investment package. Those 6 items are in a box that says our proposed investment package.
And there was a workshop that worked you through how we came to those 6 packages.
Okay.
The report itself, and I spoke to our local MP on Friday because I knew this would come up. It is sitting with the minister because it's a MP-led piece of work for our region. Both mayoral officers from QLDC and QLDC have been involved with it. But as a member of the governance team, we've got to be cognizant that we've got to bring the minister along with us before obviously full detail is made. I think it's only appropriate for the minister to see it before the rest of us.
Is it possible that some or all of those, or some of those projects no longer exist?
It's possible that as this work moves through any negotiation, that not all of these might happen. Because I guess none of them are locked in at the moment. Some may accelerate, some may slow down. At this point in time, these are some opportunities that have been identified, but because they're not locked in, they could either speed up or slow down, depending on what's happening.
Are the owners of those projects aware that they've been promoted as priority investment, part of a priority investment package?
Yes, at the governance level, they've been individually spoken to.
That's not what I understand, but
and they've actually been in the room when I've been in the room.
Okay. Relating to transport package, there's a number of enablers that relate to the funding of MRT and congestion charging, using the local visitor levy IBL to fund MRT, fare box recovery to fund MRT, and why does that only relate to MRT and not to existing public transport investments that we require?
Sorry, I'm just.
On the transport.
It's about all of them.
Yeah, it's in the shift to market. Yeah, so it is about those.
So this list at the bottom is indicative. So the things in brackets are examples of where they could be used. Again, as we move through any negotiation, that would be worked through. But if we're talking about the fare box recovery is specifically talking about offline MRT and the regional bus link, because those are the 2 new things that are highlighted in this package. Similarly with the congestion charging is about shifting demand, as well as which if you were going to introduce offline MRT, you would have to significantly shift demand usage onto that in order to get the benefits from it. That's why it's highlighted there.
So,
but it would also apply to buses.
So the next point says that reprioritise the NLTP funding to address those other critical projects, which includes PT priority on Frankton Road, an unfunded component of the Queenstown package. It includes the Stanley Street bus hub, things like that are unfunded. So I suppose I'm just trying to understand how can, given that the NLTP and the RLTP is incapable, and I have some numbers here as to what the scope of the RLTP is incapable of funding those things. How do we make sure that they are delivered as priority or elevated in the regional deal process?
So essentially what this is talking about is that there are a range of ways that we could in future fund and finance the mixture of transport solutions we want. This is highlighting all of those different options and some suggestions for where they might be used, but a negotiation of any deal would work through all of that. All of the key transport stakeholders have highlighted exactly what you're highlighting, which is that those investments that are already identified as critical through the various business cases would need to continue. But that would be part of the discussions is how all of those things would get funded. The NLTP part is essentially saying if we were to be given the first regional deal, essentially the government is saying that we are a very high priority for building economic growth in New Zealand. Therefore, that priority should be reflected in their NLTP prioritisation, and we should be the projects that form part of this broader solution for the two districts should be elevated in the existing NLTP by bringing the priority up. So this is about a mixture of solutions to try financing and funding solutions to try and deliver the broader package.
The thinking is that at this stage, if you're successful in being awarded a regional deal opportunity, you hold an extraordinary status in processes going to. We don't have any further information on that. It'll come through the negotiations, but that is the theory behind.
Doesn't matter how we slice that pie though, there's no way that reprioritising the RLTP is not going to fix any of that problems. I mean, we could spend the entire Otago budget of the RLTP and not deliver the funding, the program that we already have in place. Well,
that's why all these other things are on the list. So it's all of this together would be looked at to fund all of the package together. So what we're suggesting here to government is that there is a range of different tools that we could use together in a different way that have not been used before to fund all of the things that are needed.
Okay.
That is the different thing about this approach compared to just saying this NLTP money.
I think the principle applies actually to all the packages. It's twofold, and it's like two intersecting wheels. One's intersecting wheel says these are the new initiatives. The other intersecting wheel says this is how we break the system and reconstruct the system in a different way using different tools and different levers, and that creates opportunity for different funding. So we're trying to both. So the point you make is absolutely right. And the current model and the current funding structures, this is not being delivered. Therefore, the regional deal provides at least a chance for us to begin a conversation that says, if you break both models and look at things differently, could we achieve more?
Okay, let me skin this cat a different way. That how do we gain confidence that these ideas that are going to solve the problem that we face? Because while at a high level, it's great to talk about congestion charging, it's great to talk about MRT, but the problem we have today is a $500 million shortfall in transport funding on the existing projects, and that needs to be the priority. The same with healthcare, and the point that's been addressed here is the point that we have. The problem we have is a lack of strategic approach to healthcare in our district. The solution doesn't necessarily. How do we have confidence that this package is going to solve the problems that we have?
Yeah, sure. So it's a reasonable question. And again, it doesn't necessarily relate simply to transport, it relates to these all. And the answer is, I mean, what we're being invited, or I suppose, councils and groupings of councils around the country and the private sector have been invited to do is say, offer a different model going forward. So what we know is, the RLTP is not going to deliver it. And no RLTP is going to have that funding. So we need to either change the basis of how that funding looks and feels, and that is around fast tracking, potentially in the way that this deal has crafted other tools to gain revenue, other tools to deliver some of the core infrastructure that's needed to move things. And I think we can probably reflect that as far back as the QUITS program, probably when Mr. Picard had a black beard rather than a grey beard, mass rapid transit, congestion charging, priority bus lanes, all those things have been there as aspirations for a long time. And what we and other governments have consistently failed to do is to be able to deliver on it in the funding and financing frameworks that we have. So I suppose the answer is those ideas have been there. Yes, they've yet to be proven, but at least we have a package to pursue with the government and with the private sector to debate.
Okay, and sorry, one final question. Anita, I understand you had a look at some of the hardware stuff. I was concerned about the wording around the IAF and the enablement of infrastructure at hardware. Have you got some changes to that or some suggestions?
Yes, yeah, I'm just going to clarify the, in terms of the IE, there's a, that enabled about 4,200 homes. So 880 directly in Hawea, 70 in Albert Town, and the balance in the border areas. So I'll just add that clarification in. The reference to the greater than 5,700 is the result of the special housing area, the proposed plan changes, the increases in densities, but also the new greenfield areas. So I'll add those points of clarification to make that really clear.
Thank you. Question around the road price and tolling, that side of things. We haven't consulted on that yet. If we were to do something, we would have to consult. But if we're asking for regulatory change, I'm just a bit nervous that there might be a way for that to occur without us consulting the community. So can we confirm here whether we would be consulting the community on any changes that would involve road charges, tolls, congestion charging or otherwise?
Well, I think effectively that would require the government to create a legislative framework to do so. If the government required that consultation to take place, then we would. If it didn't, I couldn't at this point give any guarantees we would.
Right. Okay. Well, that's interesting because that's a little bit different to what I think we've talked about previously. Which
I
is another
don't believe it
point.
was. Sorry. Sorry, I don't believe that was different to what you've been advised.
Yeah, no, I was advised that there would be consultation. I was just.
Sorry, I said. If to be clear, if the government changes the rules and requires consultation, there certainly will be consultation.
But we could choose to consult.
Well, that's a choice that council or the partnership would want to make in any given circumstance.
Right.
Yeah,
Slightly concerning. Thank you, though. That's good to know. Look, around the hospital, the private hospital, I've got some concerns. I have heard that. And you might be able to confirm whether this is true or not, that one of the options for this private developer developing the hospital in Queensland is to demolish the in stages and so on and so forth, but remove the existing public hospital and replace it with a private hospital.
So the proposal as set out in here is not for a private hospital. It's for a private investor to build a facility that is then leased by the public sector, by Health NZ, to deliver a public hospital service from it. It may also lease other space in the same building to private health providers. And so you might have both in the same building. It's not the proposal as discussed here isn't a private hospital. It's a private investor building a facility that
we have at the moment with Lakes District Hospital as publicly owned infrastructure.
Yes.
And the proposal is to potentially remove that publicly owned infrastructure and replace it with privately owned infrastructure.
This proposal doesn't talk at all about what happens with the existing building. That would be in Health NZ's domain. What this proposal is to enable Health NZ to use the government's new strategic leasing guidance, which has been developed for the health sector in New Zealand specifically, because Health NZ cannot afford to continue to maintain their the current portfolio of assets that they have. So this proposition is essentially building a facility that would enable Health NZ to use that strategic leasing approach to lease a facility rather than having to own it. But what Health NZ would then do with the existing facility is.
Yes, no, I heard it was to replace that same facility on that piece of land, and that was from the independent person. So, look, next question. Under regulatory relief, we've got streamlined pathway to enable. Sorry, page 12. This is on our prioritisation sheet on slide 12. 1A. So 0.5 under regulatory relief, streamlined pathway to enable timely partnering with the private sector. And I'm assuming we won't be necessarily partnering with the private sector on the hospital. That's referring more to the transport side of things, is it? Yes, I believe so. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of this work won't require our partnership necessarily. So, yeah, I think that's what.
So one of the things that concerned me about that, as it might apply to or any streamlining of the hospital proposal, if that's what we're pitching, is that I'm just trying to understand procurement rules,
I think that's what that's speaking to, is to have some real clarity around that.
which might be to bypass existing procurement rules, because what we're looking at is pitching a particular proposal, making use of what the private sector would like to do and looking at leasing it. I'm just concerned about government procurement rules, and this can all be noted out later, but have we thought about that?
So essentially, under the government procurement rules, there would be a long lead-in process to this. So if the government wants to move quickly on this stuff, they would need to enable streamlined partnering with the private sector. Just generally, if you want to partner with the private sector to deliver things on a timeline, this is for the government, and they could provide a streamlined process to do that.
Potentially advocating for that. Just concerned about competitiveness and price of services for our region long term.
That's not necessarily saying it wouldn't be a competitive process, just that,
Streamlining is not shortcut.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, last question related to that. Does this proposal at this point lock us into this private health proposal? I'm hearing nothing is locked in at this point, and that there's negotiations to come and that things may, correct? Great, thank you.
I
and-
think if the health proposal was to go forward, this would be primarily a partnership between the private sector and Health NZ, not us.
No, I realise that we're advocating and it's our deal.
Yeah.
Last question is just around the process from here, because essentially what we're doing is we can't make amendments to this today. It's whether we approve it or not, right? I just want to confirm from here, we had a look at the government strategic framework, and they seem to have milestones, and the next milestone would be an MOU. And then the milestone after that would be the regional deal. And if we were first off the block, if we got accepted, we would be agreeing an MOU in May and agreeing a deal in December. And I just wanted to confirm whether that had changed, because a lot has in that strategic framework.
I'm not sure that the timeframes have been locked in, and we are not aware. There's been no communication on the process that would be expected to go through to get to an MOU or from an MOU to a deal. So other than the fact that the strategic framework says first we'll sign an MOU and then we'll get to a deal, that's all we know. There's been no other communication.
And is that, sorry, this might apply to this question as well, but there was, it was sort of intimated that it's gone to 16 proposals now rather than the 5, but that there was a second tranche in 2026 that would probably be agreed around October 2026. Is that still a?
I think their intent is still to do one this year with more to follow next year,
Next year?
and potentially the year after still here.
That's great. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Mine is a little bit of a follow-up on that as well. Can you just talk through what the process is, because we are talking that all of this stuff's going to happen, but this is our light touch proposal and all of that. Sorry, it probably doesn't feel very light.
No, that is what it's called, but it doesn't feel very like that.
And appreciate all the work that has gone into it, because we do see that it is a lot. So light touch is probably a little bit offensive to you, but can you just talk a little bit about what the process is? Because what I'm hearing is this isn't set in stone. This is our idea to go to them to start talking. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
To be frank, that's about all we know.
Okay.
So there's no further certainty over the process from there, other than there'll be an MOU first for who's going to be first, and then there'll be a deal negotiated. So,
but it is a negotiation, and this is a starting point.
Yes.
I think it's fair to say that they're using the language of negotiation. We know nothing about what that might entail, what kind of basis that will be on, who they'll expect to be in the room, who they won't expect to be in the room. We really are just waiting to learn more to get to that stage.
Go Esther and then go Lisa.
Thank you. So I guess I've got two fundamental concerns. One is about the oversight at the negotiation stage, which is what we've just been talking about. I fear that we kind of risk ending with a governance that merely manages like potentially a flawed deal because we haven't got the negotiation stage mapped out. So I don't know. I mean, you've just basically said you've got no idea what that looks like. Can I just confirm that?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
Nothing at all back from central government in terms of what negotiation may look like, but they're using the language of negotiation.
Using the language of negotiation.
So given that there's no certainty, to me that smacks of many recent things like, you know, fast tracks, ministers' picks that got on the list.
Councillor, I've got a question.
I have. I just asked one. So essentially, that's a piece that we'll come to afterwards when we move it. We may put forward an amendment on that to try and secure some
We've got a
oversight.
question that's from us.
The second question I've got is around Bendigo Gold Mine. So I guess I'm just really interested. I realise that obviously it's CODC and they're one of our partners and we can't necessarily speak for them. But it goes against you know, just transition to a low carbon society, against all of our strategic direction, and it's really critical that we have some alignment with our future strategic direction. So can you speak to why or how that's made it in, or what that might look like? I realise that this isn't set in stone, but we're supposed to be putting our best foot forward, and to me that doesn't seem like our best foot forward.
Well, I think the active identified in Central Otago, it's very important to our partners in Central Otago that they receive some release royalties for any activity that happens. They're not making a suggestion that it is a good thing that it does happen, but in the event that it does, how do you actually mitigate some of the effects of the mine's existence? And we felt that could be, it's an uncomfortable fit at times, but in terms of managing the effects and the impact on the well-being of the people of Central Otago who may be affected by the mine, but also our own people, because there is a very high chance that some of those workers will be living in Queenstown and Monica and Luggett. Yeah, so how do we actually ensure that that is shared? Like I think that's being felt.
Thank you. Lisa?
Thank you. I've been asked some questions by the public as to the different packages that we've landed on, but one in particular is around why we haven't included local water done well in our regional deal. I wonder if you could just explain that to our public audience as to, you know, councillors this morning had a workshop on local water done well, but why are we addressing that separately to within the packages we're talking about here?
Because it's specifically excluded from what you're allowed to ask for. Yeah, so we have a separate.
We had guidance
Yeah.
treat local water done well separately to this.
Yes, there is a separate process happening for local water done well, and because of that process, there is you know, water assets and investment in Three Waters infrastructure is not to be included in regional deals.
Thank you.
Gavin?
All right, I've got a couple of things. So paragraphs 20 to 23 of the actual report on page 9 talks about an initial suggested governance structure, and it mentions they're using or advised to use an urban growth partnership structure. And then talks about grow well partnership being one of those. And also that CODC has provided input into that. Now, so my question is, would that existing partnership take on the governance of this, or would it be something similar to that? And if it was, if they were to do this as well, can they do their existing role and a new role under this?
So I think the suggestion here is that it could be used as a basis, not in its current form.
Right.
It would have to be re-looked at. And within the regional deal, we do have a slide that talks about the changes we'd have to look at, but you know, delegations, membership and those types of things, but it's just the starting point which we can build off. Because currently Central Otago are not part of that partnership, but we are moving towards inviting them to join.
Yeah, I think it does say somewhere else that they'd like to join it.
I think it's also important to note that, as I've briefly mentioned at the beginning, the majority, well, everything in here is grounded in our spatial plan. So one of the opportunities we see in the regional deal is actually to enable us to accelerate and progress some of the ambitions from our spatial plan that aren't directly in the council's control. So they're very complementary in that respect.
So that existing partnership would carry on doing its current work.
Well, it will essentially merge into implementing the regional deal, probably /
So
generation two.
its current workload would change slightly.
Yeah.
under this.
So but the sort of, because it is implementing the spatial plan, and this is essentially a tool for us to implement the spatial plan, will converge into the same thing.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the spatial plan generation 2 is being worked on at the moment. So we would see that the timelines for the preparation of that alongside regional deal would actually come together really well. So the impacts or the actions out of the regional deal could be reflected in spatial plan gen 2 and then would run through that process.
Okay, so that's been set up to, or given as a solution for the governance structure for the regional deal. Would that also apply during the negotiation? Would that governance structure be put in place for the negotiation?
Well, that hasn't been agreed, but that could be, theoretically, that could be one of the options for.
I think it's a couple of points there. Well, one is, I think if we all hark back, one of the bases for the early proposal by government, which was to have a limited number of applicants, was very much built around those that had established urban growth partnerships. So, and obviously we were one of those groups of councils that had that. So I think that sent a signal around that, and as Penny has outlined, the sort of long-term spatial planning work as being the basis for a regional deal. Now that conversation has shifted. I mean, I think the key thing in that relationship is that, you know, there are three partners and the government is already a part of that conversation. So to answer your sort of the end of your question, I don't think that necessarily is the grouping that we would use to negotiate a regional deal, but it reflects the principle of the regional deal, which is it's a collaborative process across different levels.
Wasn't so much to carry out the negotiations, but to oversee the negotiations, I guess.
No, I think that would fall to the councils themselves.
Also, I wondered, because it is a negotiation, provided we get to that step, have we, you know, maybe in the background of this proposal, looked at what our scenarios are? I mean, obviously with the negotiation, it's give and take. So it's a starting point. There's obviously got to be some potential to give away from that. Has there been any scenario testing to look at what might be, you know, given up in terms of what's proposed?
Not yet, and one of the reasons for that is because I think we've already done a lot of work getting it to this point. Having said that, it's grounded in, you know, our existing strategic direction. We might not be invited to negotiate, and we don't want to. So I think that's something that were we identified as the first partner, we would need to do quite quickly to understand that. But at this point, the focus has been on putting forward a proposal that the government will find, you know, see something in it that they want to partner with us on. But that's definitely something that would need to be done as we go into those negotiations.
I think it's worth noting as well that in each of these packages, we've been asked to describe what the public sector's, what we're asking from the Crown, what council is putting on the table, what our local private sector acts are putting on the table. So we're almost kind of preempting that quid pro quo conversation. So we're trying to demonstrate in here that actually lots of people are contributing to the outcomes we're trying to achieve already, and we just need government to come to the party too.
Okay. Now I want to pick up on a point. It's, you know, it's been clearly said that it's not a place to ask for money from the government, but there are 3 instances or 4 maybe where it does ask for some form of investment. So pages 22 and 23 I've got on the full document with the attachments. Talks about 800,000 and another 250,000 for different things from the international visitor levy.
Yep.
So that's obviously money that they've already allocated potentially for other things. We're asking for some. There's also a 20% investment for the resident assistance scheme, ratepayer assistance scheme, I think, for the electrify project, and also another small investment of $1.5 million for the health package. So that's asking for money.
So the IVL ask is there because we've been told the IVL is not fully allocated. So that is, it's unlike some of these other areas where it's already been allocated and things would need to be reprioritised. We understand the IVL is not fully allocated yet, which is why we've included those. In terms of the ratepayer assistance scheme, that isn't asking for funding. It's more like financing because there's a return on it. It's an investment. So it's not asking for the cash to say invest in this and you'll get something back.
But the other question that goes with that is that on the page that says, what is the region seeking from central government? It does refer to those things, but it doesn't specifically state them clearly that we are asking for that, either investment or allocation of funds. And I just wondered whether it shouldn't say it more clearly. It doesn't say it in this explicitly as it does in the previous pages.
So the IVL funding isn't there because it's not reprioritisation or new, it could be new funding.
I just.
Actually, it is there, it just doesn't have the amount.
No,
Is that what you mean?
They are there, but it's not as explicit as it is in
Okay.
the previous pages. And when it's, that's the page that if I was a government person, I'd be looking at saying, well, what are you asking?
Yeah, and we can add the total there.
Then the next page, page 26 in the full document, has some highlighted figures to be filled out. Are we at the stage where we know what those figures are?
I'm still just working through, I've got the data in my inbox, I just haven't flowed through to here yet. So those are just the existing investments that we've made over the last few years, not just because they're substantial, but I just want to make sure we get those numbers right.
They need to be plugged in, obviously.
Yes, yes, they do.
So that's prior investment.
Yeah, these are prior investments.
Now, I did have a question though, some of the pages 27 and 28, it tells us at the top of the page and the little commentary, how many paragraphs we're allowed to put in. And one of them says maximum 4 paragraphs and we've got 8. And the next 3 pages, it says a maximum of 6 and we've got 31. I'm assuming that's 6 for those 3 pages in total. Just wondering how are we distilling that down into those paragraphs?
Well, we're not going to because they've asked for quite complex information in a small amount of space. And we did check with DIA, do we strictly need to stick to literally 4 paragraphs if it says that? And they said, as long as you are being succinct in your answers, it should be okay.
31 paragraphs seems like a lot more. 6, they're short paragraphs. Sure.
We've got a lot of partnerships. Not everybody has so many partnerships.
I don't think bullet points counts. Paragraphs. And then just a couple of readability things. Firstly, there's some icons for growth and infrastructure and housing. Where am I looking at? Page 16. You read that whole document? Or that one as well. Those icons are there without saying what they are, but that's fine if you know what the icons mean. But before that, the icons sort of change from one page to another. So on page 16, we've got the priority objectives and the icons and what they are defined as. And then we go to 3 pages further on where we've got the executive summary. The icons for those 3 definitions or the 3 priority areas are slightly different. Just for consistency for someone reading it would be easier if they were the same all the way through.
We can tidy out the icons. Yeah, we'll do another review of this.
Well, they are included on another page. So that's just a consistency thing to make it easy to read. And the other one was, again, it's just a picky thing, but all through the document it talks about the HAS, HAA, which I've looked it up, so I now know what it means, but it's not actually, it is on the
It
A3s,
is
but
defined somewhere.
it's always good, on the A3s that are an
Yeah.
attachment to the attachment, but I always think it's good to have it written out the first time you have it in the document with the acronym and then use the acronym after that, just for someone reading it so they know it.
That probably is just because we changed the order of this one.
Yeah.
We'll track that down.
Our editor in chief has gone through.
Well, no, it's just
look, I mean, give it to me.
someone to read. The easier we make it for them to read, the better.
I agree.
That would be
Any further questions?
Well, the only other one was to go back to Mel's one with the light touch, it's 24 pages long. So, yeah, it's good work. It's their template. Yeah.
So, light touch is their terminology, and you'll see at the top of each page are the requirements.
Yeah.
So
that's
despite it being framed as light touch, they have asked for a lot of information.
Yeah. Well, those requirements,
We haven't included anything that they haven't asked for.
It's our signal to them that we've answered their questions.
I wasn't sure whether that was going to be moved out, but no, it's good.
Thank you. There's one more then.
You may not be able to answer this, but I'm just thinking, if you don't get it, or we don't get approval from all 3 councils, can we still submit the proposal? And I probably shouldn't have asked that question, so you can ignore it if you like.
I think that's.
We have contingency A and contingency B. Put it that way. Just leave it. All right, any further questions? Well, with that, I'll move 1 through to 5. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Barry.
I'd like,
Open to
I'd like to
discussion.
make an amendment, move an amendment, please.
Okay, and move an amendment. Where you go?
I think John's got it up on. I'll put it on the screen. So it's just to add a number 6. And open to the wording on this. So you can't probably see that yet, but so it says direct staff to develop a structure for the management and governance of the negotiation phases that lead to the signing of the MOU and the regional deal, to be agreed by council at least 1 month before any MOU is signed.
And I'll second that.
Discussion, councillors. Oh, sorry. Questions? Right, discussion. Sorry, discussion.
Mr. Chair, noting that we are only one party, one council involved in this, we can't make a resolution like that, which is basically binding or will be subject to ORC and QLDC involvement and approval. So to say that we're going to do this and agree it on that timeline would be unachievable. So I would not support the amendment.
Yes.
Point of clarification, are we able to ask staff how these are?
Sorry.
One.
Because we're in discussion.
So it doesn't actually appoint
Hang on.
any of the council.
All right, I can.
No. Keep going. Have you got anything else?
Outside of, yeah, no. Yes.
Yeah, well, I'll say something that, you know, this amendment or this item is only to develop a structure. I think because things have been moving so fast and they'll, I imagine continue to do so, there will be limited time. You know, if we are the party that's chosen to sign a memorandum of understanding. I don't see that there's any, and I think there's potentially issues that because things will be happening so fast that we don't have a chance to establish a structure like this in good time at that time. And I can't see any problem with setting up a structure now, developing a structure, which is what it says, all that process in advance. It doesn't have to be, you know, nothing will be confirmed on it. There wouldn't necessarily be any people appointed to it, but at least the structure is there, so it can be put into place quickly if necessary.
Thank you. Chair, I suppose I come back to the point that we haven't had any clarity yet from central government on how the negotiations to proceed or what the process is, and I have some hesitation around us getting too far ahead of ourselves as well. This has come, and thank you for all of your work, everybody that's been involved in this. This has come to spark ideas, and in pursuit of those ideas, we are going to have to be agile, but we're also going to be given directive as this process comes along. And I'd like to think that we are unencumbered by too many steps ahead of ourselves to actually respond to the process as it evolves. We don't have an invitation to the table yet. I'd just like to think that we see this as being a way to come together with our partners. I pick up on Councillor Cox's point, is that together with our partners, we get an opportunity to respond to how the process will unfold once we're invited into that unknown territory. At the moment, it really is unknown territory and we're pioneers in this space. And I'm just cautious around putting rules of the game in play for ourselves that we may not necessarily need or have an ability to bring effect to. That's my kind of, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
Thank you.
You're giving up your right.
I'm thinking
last.
now, yeah, and I don't even know if that's the thing, but I'm quite happy to speak to it now because neither of us has sort of introduced our thinking and intent around it. So look, just to answer a couple of questions that have come up, and look, totally agree. There's three partners in this, and we need to be talking with them, and this needs to be understood by them and worked through with them. But I think the issue is that when we make a resolution, we can't speak for another council. So we can't say what QLDC or what the ORC needs to do. So that was the reason that we left them out of it. But I think if even one party needs something like this to be in place, then we would need to all get around and meet their needs, because ultimately we're three partners in this. And if there are concerns from any one of the councils that can be addressed through good process, then, you know, we would all lead to do it. I'm sure staff have done an awful lot of work on this, and we wouldn't want it to go by the wayside because of something like that. In terms of not understanding yet where the government's at in the process, and we don't understand what negotiations look like. I mean, that's a really awkward situation to be in. And if we want to be first cab off the rank, then according to the strategic framework, the MOU will be signed in May. Working backwards, that's potentially only 2 months, which is why we decided to put 1 month ahead and not a longer time frame ahead, because we may have a very short time to work this framework up. And to Gavin's point, it would be better to have it in place, ready to go. It looks professional. It looks like we mean business. And it means there's no dithering around while we sort of discuss things that we're concerned about. We should have worked them all out if we have a good structure, whether that be a governance structure or whether that just be the timeframes for coming back to the councillors, or whatever that structure looks like, we're open to it. It's not necessarily a governance group. Timeframes, how we establish bottom lines, how we choose the people that go in to negotiate, how they feed back to us. All of that stuff needs to be understood at some point, earlier the better, as far as I can tell. And just to Lisa's other point that we don't know the landscape. I mean, if we put rules in place around a negotiating group and they're not fit for purpose once the government decides to come to the party and tell us what they're doing, then we can change them. You know, I suspect we will need to have special meetings along the way, because this is going to be a rapidly developing thing. So this is just about doing good governance. The reason I put it in place is that, you know, it's my bottom line to do good governance on this. There's been too often we sort of sit back and don't nail down the details around negotiations and contracts and things like that. And this is just making sure that we do that job on behalf of our community, because that is our job, governance. So yeah, that was the intent. And just to make sure that, you know, we've got a framework for addressing any issues between the three parties. This whole thing could fall over if one of the parties decides that, you know, say we went into an MOU and the government said the mining royalties are off the table, and the CODC, and we agreed to that, and the CODC was like, well, no, hey, and it could all blow up on us. So we need to understand how to work together as three partner councils. So, you know, those are my basic reasons. It is a bottom line for me. I can't agree to go into negotiations just free for all. We need some structure. And that's why I'm just saying.
Any further discussion?
I'll just go to mine, it's 5 to 5.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say something before. Yeah. Okay. I'm opening it up because I did ask Nikki if she wanted to give up her right, second right. She agreed. Any further discussion? Interesting, you raise good governance when you put it in 1 month, when it's going to be signed in May and April.
We can change the time frame,
Hang on, you've had enough.
We can change the time frame.
And that is completely unachievable for the staff, given the complexity of what we're about to go into, if we go into it. Frankly, as Lyle mentioned, the government still doesn't know how this is going to work. I'm pretty sure of that. They're working pretty hard at it at the moment to then direct staff to develop a structure for management, when frankly, this is a government proposal. The government will set the framework. We have to be open to that. So, yeah, and to say good governance, just remember, councillors, who's actually saying good governance when in the next sentence is starting to use blackmail about whether she votes on this, whether this amendment comes across.
Blackmail. Hey, you're misrepresenting my point. I said
No.
the bottom line for me.
Hang on, exactly. So that's the bottom line.
It's not blackmail.
So let's just make that fully aware. Now, I don't see any merit in this amendment completely, and I'll be voting against it. Off you over to you, Esther.
Thank you. So look, I mean, thank you again for all your work. It's incredible. And I think what this does is bring greater collaboration, shared objectives. It definitely obviously supports the investment in infrastructure. And we know it's a starting point, not an end point, but essentially it says throughout all of the documentation that it removes regulatory bottlenecks. We know that. We know that that's a huge risk. And what that means around that uncertainty is that we can't ensure the environmental and social safeguards that exist outside of this. So for me, this is really about saying, you know, if we look at some of the councillors' points made before, we have no clarity, we have no directive, we'll be given a directive, we'll leave it to central government. To me, it's like, let's not just leave it to our partners. Let's actually look at what we can put in place so that we can ensure that we don't have the same situation as the fast track, where the ombudsman has just, you know, researched what's been happening with the lack of transparency around that. So the negotiation stage is where it all matters to me. If we can ensure that we've got good oversight over how we negotiate, then we can ensure that we can actually, you know, rather than manage a flawed model that we're not happy with afterwards, which might be our legacy, we can ensure that we can actually build a sound model in the first place. So that's why I put it forward.
Okay, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? 6, that's 6. Casting vote, that is a no. Motion not, amendment failed. Right, now we go to the substantive motion. 3 to 5, discussion, councillors.
Yeah, just through the chair, just like to make a comment if I can, that it certainly has been a race against time, which I commend staff for the work that you've done on this and councillors as well for having to try and get ourselves up to speed. I found myself trying to get on top of this for me, just referring back to the LTP consultation where the community wanted us to, or sectors of the community, or should I say a percentage of the community wanted us to be looking at other support and funding options. And I do acknowledge there is no cash available here. But so here we are, this could be potentially one of those moments. Although I do get the scrutiny from others around the table here this afternoon. Government call it, and I'll use those words again, a light touch proposal. So to try and understand a bit more about those words, I stuck it in the old Googler. And it came out as designed to provide a general outline of ideas or solutions without getting into extensive technicalities or rigid plans. To present an idea or plan in a way that leaves room for changes and adaptability, usually to test the waters before diving into a more detailed plan. So for me, do we boot this to touch? I say pass it, don't kick it. Thank you.
Yes. Good. Well,
I want to commend the staff. I think they've done an amazing job. Look at everyone involved. I think it's a good proposal. I think we've had the opportunity to go to Skinner. This is the opportunity to do something different. You know, we can carry on doing the same thing, and I suggest there's a well-known quote that's applicable here. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So I suggest let's not be an insane council. Let's grasp this opportunity and let's try and get it over the line so we can start being a bit innovative, doing something different and making a difference for our ratepayers, residents and visitors. Thank you.
Lisa, how do you get?
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett, and to the Mayor. Yes, I think when many of us stood, well, for myself personally, it was because we were entering into unknown territories of so many new elected members coming on board and a new government coming on board. We've seen the great work of all three councils coming together, 27 elected members for the first time ever around the table, and Alex the other day, to help bring some alignment of goals and our vision and purpose for our district. It's so heartening to see those conversations be seeded on a broader base than just those of us here today. I really encourage us all to be bold and to pass this. The time is now. This is the only invitation that we have in front of us at the moment to do something differently. And that's why I stood, was to look at how we can take some calculated risk to meet new heights. And this is the first opportunity I've seen to really put something different forward that might bring about some real opportunities for our communities that I just don't see coming forward in any other way. So I don't think we can sit back. I think that we have to be active in pursuing this, and I wish you luck and thank you for all your work and what you've done so far, because credit to you. I think there's even been some suspicion that we can't possibly put this kind of proposal together, and we all know that this has come about internally from all your hard work, so thank you very much.
Okay, Gavin, then I'll go Nikki, okay, you. No, hang on, I'll go Quentin before you, Barry. Remember, you're the second, so you're second to last. I mean, just split, so I'll go Gavin.
I'm second, yeah, you're second last. That's right. Thank you. No, so yeah, again, I'd like to say thanks for all the hard work, because I know there has been a lot of it in a short period of time. I echo the thoughts of Councillor Cox and Councillor Ferg, that this is an opportunity to do things differently from the way that they've been done in the past. And you know, we sometimes say that it seems like those ways of the past don't get anywhere. But also Esther's words resonate with me as well, that the negotiation part of it, if we get to that stage, is the key. You know, this is a 30-year deal potentially, so that's, you know, depending on whether election terms change, but that's probably 10 future councils will be dealing with this, the outcome of this. So that is for me the key as well, that you know, when we're going into the negotiation, you've got to know what you want to get out of it, you've got to know what you're prepared to give up, and you've got to be prepared to walk away from it if it's not going where you think it is. And I know the Mayor has said when we first had a conversation about this, that he would be prepared to walk away from it if it wasn't looking right. So I'd like to think those principles will remain in place. But yeah, I think it is an opportunity, and today is our day to make a small decision on perhaps the first step of a longer journey. But
Thank you. Look, there's lots of good stuff in this, lots of really good stuff, and lots of stuff that's obviously come out of existing policy, and I want that to happen. But I want it to happen well. And at the same time, there's a lot of stuff in there that really concerns me, that we are giving up on advocating for public money for health care, that we are, the words of Lucy, sort of allowing private sector to determine where our health facilities need to be. It may be an opportunity, but it could also go very badly wrong for our community. It may not have gone wrong if we'd had a good governance structure over the negotiations, but I just have no faith at this point. I feel like we are operating under a mayor who's pushing back against good governance and getting personal at the same time. The last time we rushed into something with the government because we saw money, we saw opportunity, we got the arterial and the alliance, and we did not have a good governance framework over that. In the document, we've actually said, and I'm not advocating and other people disagree, I'm just explaining myself. We said we'd learned lessons, and they weren't just lessons around how we operated and managed the process. There were governance lessons to learn there as well. And by downing that amendment with his casting vote, the mayor has just cast aside all of those lessons. And I'm really disappointed. And I have no faith now, no trust in the team that's going in to negotiate this. It's not now or never. That's the thing with this deal. It's not. And I'm just reading now from the strategic framework. Subsequent regional deals will build on the lessons learned from previous regional deals to ensure the system is refined as more deals are established. We go into this later. We go in with processes established and knowing what we're doing, and no one can make the argument that, oh, the government hasn't figured the process out. So we shouldn't do good governance. We should just go along for the ride. There are so many red flags in this for me. But I do think we need to do a regional deal. I do think this is an awesome basis for future work with some tweaks, but I don't think we're ready. I don't think QLDC is ready, I don't think the partnership's ready, and for that reason, I'll be voting against it.
I've got Quentin, I think. Go to you and then I'll go to you.
Thank you. Yeah, look, this has been super tricky, and so firstly, thanks for the work you have put into it. It's been a mountain of work over a very short period of time. I'm sure Councillor Berg will recognise that this is not the first time somebody's come to the table with a promise of answering the questions in this district. We've done referendums on visitor levies. We've done, even Lakeview was a move to try and enable discussion with government around our buy-in to a visitor levy. We've had regional, we've had urban growth partnerships. We've had Queenstown master plans, Wanaka master plans, all these sorts of different things that have all been framed to help us answer the question around infrastructure growth particularly. And most of them, to be fair, have come up dry because government, most part, haven't backed up the other half of the equation. Look, notwithstanding that the work that's been done is within the framework of what we're allowed to do, as I sort of alluded to before, I'm really concerned it doesn't answer the primary questions that we have, is how do we fund the growth in this district? How do we fund the visitor component, which is well spelled out in there, now in the order of $800 million or something like that. How do we fund transport in a different way? Now, the ideas that have been put to the table, while they're great ideas, and things like the MRT have been signalled for a long period of time, I don't think it answers, in my view, how they can be funded at a $5 fare box revenue. And I've got absolutely no basis on which to believe that that can be delivered at $5 a fare. The same for putting solar panels on everyone's houses. We've seen Solar Zero, and that model, while on face value is a great idea, I haven't seen how this proposal avoids the pitfalls of the Solar Zero problem. And the same with healthcare is that I haven't seen the strategic asset report, and I don't know what the basis for the priority investments is, other than that they've been put together in some cases without the knowledge of people who have designed them, that will ensure that they have a strategic approach to healthcare in our region. So look, they're all great ideas. The biggest mistakes that I've made at this table was when I don't have enough information. And for that reason, I'm not saying no to a regional deal, but I'm saying I don't have enough information to inform that this proposal is sufficient for us to go to government. And the final thing I will say is that if we're going into a negotiation and this government aren't bringing $500 million to the table to solve our transport problems today, then I don't know what we're doing. And so I'll leave it at that. And they simply cannot come to the table without bringing cash. And it's just ludicrous. And the same with health, same applies to healthcare.
Well said.
And then
Thank you. Well, I'm disappointed that there's a 50-50 split there and that we lost that, but that's the way it goes. I have great confidence in our staff and what you've achieved, and I do think that we have a readiness that can't really be argued against. I know a lot of this is still in ideation stage, but there's a lot of policy work that's sat behind that for years, so thank you for that. I just find that the power dynamic that we have from this government is so unfavourable and inequitable that, to me, these deals just don't sit right. for society as a whole, but also even when we're asked to be a part of those negotiations. The negotiation stage for me was kind of a bit of a make or break, to be honest. So I would ask that any councillors in ORC or QLDC that are watching right now would consider thinking about moving an amendment tomorrow or the following day to achieve that, given that there's great support around this table at least, and I suspect there's great support around other tables. The regional deal has some really amazing ways of thinking outside of the restrictions that we currently have and that we've had for years. So I can see many benefits in it. Yeah, and I'm struggling with this vote right now.
I'm really excited about it. I'll change the mood a little. Wore my sky blue shirt for blue sky thinking. I wore a tie, which is big for me as well. I'm extraordinarily proud of the work you guys have done, and I'm really excited to see a lot of the thinking that was the reason I stood. You know, there's systemic issues that we constantly suffer from, and it feels like finally we get to have a conversation about really addressing them in creative ways. And maybe, you know, a bit of youth and ignorance is a bit too much optimism, but I feel really excited to see special economic zones and electrification of everything and gondolas and, you know, just a really sort of liberated approach to how we're going forward. And I know any of these kinds of things takes a level of courage and a level of vulnerability and faith. But yeah, super grateful to have you guys put this together and all of it gets done. I'm just really thankful.
I go 100% what Claudia said. Thank you so much for all the work. It is really exciting to see some of these things, I guess, all in a package. I would like to think that this is the starting point. This isn't kind of where we're going to end up. So I look forward to seeing where we do end up if we get there. But I also want to encourage a lot of these pieces of work that regardless of a regional deal, that we keep moving forward on them anyway, because I think so many of them are so crucial to our whole region that, yeah, regardless of regional deal, most of what's in it for us, we need to keep working forward on anyway. So I will be in favour today.
I'm just going to hand it over to Barry in a minute.
Yeah, I'll say a piece. Look, I'm sitting here and I like to think I'm youthful like Cody. I'm slightly ignorant. Look, the community's been banging on at us and about the state of the district and the way it's going. And for 2 years, I've sat at this table here going, there is no solution. Central government has put aside the priority of this district for many, many years. And I guess I'm before today for the fact that we've got to keep our opportunities open at every stage to give this district the best shot it can. And I feel that if we don't support it, we know exactly what it looks like. So that's all I'll say. And thanks.
Thanks. We also like to thank the staff very much for all the work that we've put in. I think it's been a valuable exercise regardless what the decision is. We shouldn't lose lose track of the fact that the decision we're making today is not going to provide a foregone answer to us. It's a decision to be invited to join negotiations. It's just an invitation. There's no guarantee that we are going to get there. Hopefully we do. I certainly understand the discussions by some and concerned about unknown scenarios that nobody knows the answer to at the moment, but I think I'm certainly in favour of accepting that invitation, as I've shown by seconding the motion, but I also believe that there will be ample opportunity to go through some of the details and concerns that have been expressed here today if we are accepted and we go down that negotiation track.
We're going to the vote. Thank you, team. Thank you very much. A few late nights, I'm well aware. So, look, if we think back, this was only proposed, I think, 2 months worth of work into a template that didn't allow us to distill over 6 years of work, thinking, strategic outlook into some very limiting paragraphs and what I would suggest is a limiting template. But for those that are worried about this being the end game, I'll just point out the Manchester deal has been running for 13 years now. They're on to their 8th deal. This is an evolving process. If we think back to the Chief Executive's report as an incremental journey and with outcomes and relationships, relationship building in mind. We talk about the power dynamic of central and local government. Well, here's a chance to actually even up that power dynamic. Instead of this little brother, big brother stuff, it's actually coming to the table as an equal. So I'm constantly challenged by people of the public to be bold. Here's your chance, councillors, to be bold. An opportunity in front of you to grasp, to break the system, to actually achieve things we want to achieve and we've talked about for the last 6 years. Here's the opportunity. It stands right in front of you right now. I'm going to be bold. I'm asking the question of all of you to be bold with me. But it's now up to you. So I'll leave it at that. All those in favour? All those against? Motion carried. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you.